Are men superior to women? A big question that many of you probably have an answer to immediately, but a friend and I are going to react to a video that begs that question. Everybody, all that and more on today's Fun Friday episode of Speechless, The Daily Show. If you're just tuning in, you're watching Speechless. I'm your host, Kev Phares, 22-year-old conservative college student out of Central Illinois, hosting my daily show. And this one's going to run a little bit long, and so I might even split it up into two different parts, but we're going to keep going, reacting to this very interesting video. Me and my good friend, Cat Peterson, host of Conservative Cat, and also The Morning Buzz with Cat Peterson on Cities 92.9 and on YouTube. You can go subscribe to her YouTube right now if you would like. And now, so we're going to continue with this Jubilee video. Are men superior to women, with alphas and beta males coming together, finding middle ground, and just hashing out some different prompts. And the next one, Kat, I am not going to read it out loud for you. I'm going to have you read it because I do not want a lawsuit. So do you know, could you read what that said?
Yeah.
So yeah, you could read it if you'd like.
I am great at sex.
Yep, that's what it says. So,
Okay.
So I'm interested to see what these men have to say about it. I don't really think we need to talk about this as a boss to an employee, but I'm really interested to see the difference in how alpha males and beta males would answer this question. Let's take a look and a listen.
I'm great at sex.
Oh, come on, man. I mean, I have a lot to learn. That's a women disgusting. Prove it. Right now.
Almost all of them.
This was a chance to redeem yourself.
No, I know, but it's just.
All right.
Actually, I'm gonna go back.
Really good. With my partner, my wife, I'm able to not only connect physically, but also emotionally. You know, and I think that's the biggest trick I've learned. Not trick, but the thing I've learned about my years of being with my partner. You have to sort of like, you know, keep the spice going.
I would say, you know, I think the fact that we have a woman who keeps coming back or who keeps wanting it, I think that, you know, that's a sign that she thinks you're great at sex. You know what I mean? Because she actively wants to keep it going and keep it going in that direction. I will say though, I'm better at sex with women I care about.
Yeah.
You know, so I think, and me being a player and a guy who goes out and talks to a lot of different women, you know, if with my girlfriend or like my wife or whatever like that, sex would be great. With the other girls, it can still be good, but I know that I don't really put in that much effort because it's almost like I'm masturbating with someone.
And eventually, you know your partner's like comfortability, what they like, what they don't like, and things, and that's how you make sex a lot better instead of like sleeping with.
1,000%. Plus, you love them,
Right.
Like, so you knew if you were gonna die today and you could have sex with one person before you die, it would be that person. Like, no matter what, like you could have every supermodel, every movie star, everything. Like, fuck all that. Like, I want that person.
Focus so much on like what they like as well. You know, like you're kind of there to like pleasure them, you know, because you care about them so much.
Right.
Which is why like you would hyperfixate on like what do they like, what they don't like, and you can easily like adjust yourself and put in effort for that person.
And like, for instance, it's so true that you said that because my wife and I, we have this thing we call the love menu. Okay, you know, why did we invent the love menu? We invented the love menu because we have 3 children. And they're only 2 years apart. They're in the mid-20s now. But, you know, think about it. 2, 4, 6 at home. And I'm working and she's doing her thing. So we found that in our young relationship, sometimes the other person might be tired and like but that's hurt feelings. That makes you kind of do this type of thing. So what we did is we come up with a love menu of like, here's the appetizers. I might not be ready for the full course tonight, but here's your appetizer because I know you like this. Or here is your dessert, or here's your main course meal. And we broke it into those things. So when we do come to each other and we need that connection, it's not just like, I'm tired, I don't feel like it. It's kind of like, well, what's going to happen? We have a full course meal tonight, or we're just going to have some appetizers. And that's kept it spicy for us. And also, like what you say, making sure we're pleasuring each other. It's not just wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, I need to get my rocks off. But like, you know, how are you feeling about that? And how are you feeling about that? Because when you're in a long-term committed relationship, you have to do that or it dies.
Right.
And I love that. I love that you talk about the amount of intention that you live with in regard to making sure that you're always evolving with it, always making sure that it's spicy. You just care.
I just think, okay, so when we're looking at this is an alpha and a beta agreeing right now, and I think that's great to see. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I love these is because you'll find places where they heavily disagree, and you'll find places that they do agree. I think the thing that's really interesting about this one is just simply the honesty from the beta and very openness to willing to talk about what I would view as private information. Like,
Yeah.
so like to an extent, you might have seen me laughing at the love menu stuff because it sounds a little weird. But it makes sense in the idea of like, as you get older, to maintain that monogamous relationship and to maintain that physical attraction. Because that's the big thing, is that a good relationship has both an element of physical and emotional attraction to it, to each other. And so it makes sense that you would want to keep that up. But talking, like things like that, sex, I had a bad voice crack there. Sex, in terms of the way, there was an awful word.
16-year-old Kevin.
No, but having that kind of a discussion in public, I can understand like a dude with his bros, like having like a conversation like that with his buddies, like, hey, I really need advice on this, like as a dad or as a husband, like what do other husbands think about this? But making it such public knowledge, like now all of that guy's friends, and he's probably comes from, I mean, look at the guy, he probably comes from a relationship that like all of the people in his surrounding community, probably he'd be more than happy to have that conversation with them anyways. But that's just super weird to me, being that open and divulging that much information.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's a man thing. I don't know if that's a conservative thing. I don't
It's
know.
a beta thing.
Yeah, it could be if it's a beta thing. But what do you think about being so openly honest about?
Well, I'll say this is that, sex between a man and a woman is supposed to be where you don't have sex until marriage, right? And once you have that covenant before God, then it's in the right context. The man is supposed to be able to figure that out. And I don't know how men do it, because you guys are the ones who figure that kind of stuff out. I don't know what but I'm just going to be honest. It's another male burden of performance thing. And I'm sure from what I've seen, right, men are constantly like, am I doing it right? Is this it? Is this correct? Like, you guys think, you see all of the memes, like, you're thinking about everything, but like, is this right? Because this is a male burden of performance and whatnot. So it's something, and I like how he was like open about it and talking about how he and his wife are kind of going through it together. Like I said, I think it's more of a male burden of performance thing. And it's the man teaching the woman. I'm just going to be honest. I think that's what it is. It's the man almost teaching the woman, and they're kind of going through it together and trying to figure out what works. And it's got to be the man teaches the woman how to do it correctly to make it both pleasurable for both of them. So I think there's a male burden of performance, but he has brought in his wife so much that, I mean, I don't know.
Well, I mean, by that point, but by that point in their marriage,
there's kids and things.
Well, there's
like
that, and not to, and even if he held, I doubt he does, but even if he held that position that like sex is taught by a man in a way, by that point, you'd think that you've taught a lot because you've been in a marriage for so long, to the point where like you guys it's more of a collaborative rather than that power dynamic that's brought from teacher to student kind of thing, which makes it sound really weird, a lot weirder than I meant it to sound.
This is terrible.
But I do have a question for you though, because this is something that I think is really interesting, and then we'll get off, and then we'll get to the next prompt.
Please.
But what do you believe the purpose of sex to be?
Well, procreation, I guess. Procreation, and I don't know. I would say, to express love. So women, they produce oxytocin, if it's done correctly, and oxytocin makes women less crazy. Yeah.
Have you
women
heard?
are literally psychopaths, folks, because like I said,
Well, because it goes with that too, though. Have you heard like it's not even really a theory. It's more of just like to an extent, a biological fact, that like every time a woman sleeps with a man, there's some kind of like emotional and psychological bond that is created with that man. So if a woman sleeps with a ton of men, then in a way, it might be even the thinnest, smallest bond, but there is a man psychologically can completely disassociate themselves from a sexual experience, as a woman will always have in some level a bond to any man that they've had a sexual encounter with.
Sleeping with multiple men, ladies, is the most damaging thing you
and
could
that's
do.
not an excuse for men to just be like, oh, go like screw whoever you want. Like that's obviously still problematic,
it's very different
but just
for women.
Psychologically, at least from the things I've seen and read, women have more of a emotional bond.
Yeah, because of the hormone called oxytocin, which is literally called the love hormone. So
Yeah.
like it's referred to in medical spheres as the love hormone. And what that does, it's literally, so you have to be compassionate with children. Children are absolutely wild, right?
Yeah.
Anybody who is a parent understands that. And you have to be compassionate and very caring.
Mhm.
And what this hormone does, this oxytocin hormone, it almost gives you the taste of what that's like. So I'd imagine that your body produces all kinds of hormones through pregnancy. I don't know. I've never been pregnant. I have no idea. I don't have children of my own, but I'd imagine that the reason why your body goes through all those different hormonal changes is because it's preparing you for motherhood. And it's so amazing that God designed us this way. Even in the act of creating a child, he makes your body go through a response that is designed to help children. Like going through that oxytocin response is going to ultimately help you raise children and be a good mom.
Mhm.
Because it's a great hormone. It's wild,
Yeah.
right? But it's a great hormone,
Yeah.
right? Where you have oxytocin. You can even get levels of oxytocin in running.
Mhm.
That's why, running is like so women run, I think, more than men statistically. I'm not too sure about that, but there's an oxytocin hormone,
Yeah.
and it's this runner's high, right? That's almost an
Absolutely.
oxytocin
I've heard of
hormone.
that before.
So yeah, it's really biological why women emote certain
Mhm.
ways and that. So
Now, so there's another. I want to get to the next prompt now because we're running into an hour, but we'll keep going. If you got time, Cat, keep going for a bit.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
till
So
two.
we got the next one that they're talking about here, and I think we disagree on this one, but I want to be clear. Women should not be in positions of power. Is the next one? What do you think, Cat? Women should not
Oh
be in
boy.
positions of power.
I am going to be canceled. Yeah, no, women should not be in positions of power or influence. And I'm saying this as a woman who
Mhm.
has some sort of influence, not a huge influence,
Yeah.
but some sort of influence. I say that because, like these alphas said in the video, um, there is nothing more fulfilling than being submissive and having your attention focused on other people's feelings, because that is like a weird supernatural ability that God gave women, is that you have the ability to internalize other people's feelings. And that is exhausting. So imagine being in a position of power and having to be in charge of
Yeah.
things, then also having to deal with this weird supernatural thing of internalizing others' feelings. So yeah, I would say no. I even take the position, and people know this, that I don't think women should be able to vote, um, because this is a decision that is supposed to be logical. Politics, right? Things, policy, it should be logical. It should not be driven on emotion. And women are always emotional. Like we're just emotional. We emote differently. It doesn't mean that it's bad. It's awesome. I think
Mhm.
that my emotion is so cool and that it's a superpower that I have. And I don't think women should be able to vote. I don't think that they should hold positions of power. And now certain like
That's where I was going to get
obviously
you to quality, because so I think that there are women that they are. I mean, because it's a generalization to say that women aren't necessarily. You want to use that mic instead?
no, no,
Oh
no.
no,
I
I
was
got you.
just moving it.
I got you. Well, but there's one, women are always going to be in some way in a position of power, at least even if they're just a mother, then they'll be obviously a position of power and influence over their children. There's obviously roles that women are pushed towards, well, not just pushed towards biologically, not necessarily by society, but based on that emotional instinct and motherhood instinct, like being a teacher, in some ways being a nurse, being in some of those different roles, psychology,
Because we have that superpower that
of understanding emotion. And so, yeah. And so positions of power, like it's kind of, once again, a kind of a general and vague
But then I'll say
terminology.
again,
But
look at these institutions. Look at
Mhm.
the academics behind psychology. Look at the psychology studies. Look at the teachers, the public education industry. Look at the healthcare industry. A lot of these industries are super, super corrupt, and the reason why is because we have women in positions of power in those places, and they are making decisions based off of emotions. That's why they publish all of these studies with psychology, right? Like, let's just look
See,
at that.
but I
one.
think that's so reductive of it. Like, I mean, to say that it's just women. No, I'd also say, I mean, like, maybe in some cases that could play a part in it, but I think a lot more. Well,
it's also beta males.
maybe
They
some
shouldn't
beta
be
males.
there
I
either.
think a big part of it though is just I mean, when we're getting into that part of it though, corruption itself, I think, is just bred from greed and the flow of money. Like that's really where I think so much of it is from, and I think that males can be susceptible to it. I think males of all. I mean, like when we're talking alphas versus betas, I think somebody who's who identifies as an alpha, Andrew Tate, who obviously is through a lot of when it comes to the gender dynamics and influence in that. He's made a big name for himself. He's one where I look at him and he is very big on the idea of vanity and Lamborghinis and having the nicest watches and smoking cigars and having the hottest chicks on his arm. Like he's very, very big into that. And I think that when you talk about corruption in any of these fields, I mean, if you look at Big Pharma, so much of it, there was both when you look at Big Pharma, I don't know if you know the story of OxyContin and Purdue Pharma, who made OxyContin and sold it to the FDA and the public as if it was a safe way to treat pain. Mm-hmm. And then eventually it was found out that it was highly addictive and in some cases deadly. That was a family board of Purdue Pharma that was made up of both men and women that were basically just trying to make as much money as possible. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I think it is. I don't necessarily think it's women. Both men and women were on that board. And they were going for the money. That's what mattered to them. They were willing to lie, cheat, and steal and kill people essentially for the money. Mm-hmm. But I want to get back to the video and let's see. Women should not be in a position of power. Let's see who steps forward.
Women should not be in position of power.
Look at this guitar pattern.
Oh, well, now
what you're looking at is...
Oh, well, I like guitars.
Yeah, you like guitar. I play a lot of guitars, so that's probably why I'm getting the ad. But let's keep going on here. Ooh, we got somebody stepping forward.
Game over. Just like his hat says.
I'm the only one. I think a woman can be in a position of power only by herself, but not in relation to being in a relationship with a man. Because when she's in a relationship with a man, the man has to be the leader. The man has to be the one that's guiding the situation, directing the situation. If it's in any other situation by herself with work, with her friends or whatever, she can do whatever she wants to do.
Game over. Your game is over.
Okay, wait. I want to look at. Do you see what that dude is wearing? The one that we were making fun of earlier. This one right here. Angelo, the one.
Oh, yeah.
It's literally a dress.
Oh boy.
Literally a dress. At least all the other ones have the
Harry Styles.
The balls to wear pants. Jeez.
I first want to ask, because there was a lot of like has to, have to's, but like not really a reason behind it. Like, can I ask, like, what's your reason behind like why a man has to be in the power, like in power? Why can't a woman be in power?
Power is such a weird word. I'll say more like the leadership role. And the thing is that a man has to lead a woman. He has to guide a woman, because what happens is that when it's the opposite, when a woman is leading that man, she usually loses respect for him. When she's in a relationship with a man who is, under her, who's submissive to her in a lot of different situations, then she starts to lose respect for him because she's looking for a man to lead and guide her. If you notice, they have sex with the bad boys, but then the nice guys get tossed to the side. You see, like, why is that?
Well, if you look at them psychologically, they have past traumas and issues probably. But like, look, there's women for you, right? I mean, like, you're on a different scale. What I would say, some women want a guy like you because they don't want to do anything, right? They don't want to take that position. I'm around a lot of women who don't want that. They're in positions of power, not just in work, career, at home. I know a lot of them. I do business. I find women much more pleasant to do business with. But when you're talking about maybe being at home, I don't know. It's just like, I think when you get into your part, your end of the pond, it can get a little bit mucky. You know what I mean? And I don't really subscribe to that as well.
I heard you say you were from New York. I lived in Manhattan for 30 years as a fashion designer in the heart of Manhattan. She was working as a fashion editor. I held it down with the 3 kids. I was the one bringing the money home. I was the one doing that. After my son, my youngest, went back to school, she went back to work. I always wanted to have my own collection. She was like, you should do that now. So guess what? She had the job. She paid the bills while I was building my company. So I could be strong in our relationship and be a man in our relationship, but I also got to know what it means to have a partner next to me and not someone that I have to lead.
Well, I think it's really, really important to specify what leading means. And so right now
Here
we're
we
talking
go.
about,
I think
you
this will
talked
be
about,
interesting.
okay, we do the chores. Sometimes she pays more, sometimes I pay more. I think it's looking at a really superficial level. I think what you look at in a relationship, when you look at leadership and the one that is following per se, is who's the one holding down the emotional space? Like, who has the capacity to show up as the rock the majority of the time in a dynamic? And if that is the woman, I believe for the most part, the polarity gets thrown off and there will be a deficiency in the sexual attraction that she'll have for you. If you are more excessively emotional and unstable than your wife, I do believe that's going to lead to issues in the relationship.
A man's job is
I agree. I
More-
agree. A man, if he, I don't think there's a problem with showing emotion in a relationship. Obviously, there's emotions of love, and there are things that can make a guy sad. I mean, like, and I'm not a big one where I'm like, oh, men should cry every time they feel like it. But like,
Jesus wept.
if there's a death, if somebody around you that was important to you dies,
Mhm.
I will not blame you for crying.
Jesus wept. I mean, if Jesus,
Yeah,
the
exactly.
Son of God,
Exactly.
cried,
And
then
so
you're allowed to cry.
exactly. But also there are men though where it's like literally every little thing they're like if you're watching a kids movie and you're crying.
Well, and I will say this: the moment you cry in front of a woman, like just cry over something, there's a deep disrespect. Um, and it all plays into security. Women are very, very selfish. Like, right?
I won't say it.
Well, it's true. It's because, and it's biological. We're selfish because we, like, uh, I can't defend myself, right, against a lot of like, if it were predators, like, I would look to a man for that kind of help, physically, because I can't, I can't defend myself physically.
Yeah.
So we are selfish in that we are constantly looking for security, constantly looking for the physical. Hey, help me. Help me open up a bottle of a pickle jar, right? You want to say that women aren't selfish? Okay, give her a pickle jar and tell her, no, you are going to open this pickle jar by yourself. No, like absolutely not. I cannot open this pickle jar.
Now
swear.
I see what you're saying, and
Yeah.
I think to an extent, but I don't think all women are selfish. I mean, like the entire
All
idea,
humans are selfish.
well,
I mean, we should
yes,
say
there's
that.
a lot. Humans are always thinking of their self-interest,
Yeah.
in almost any situation. However, I would think that I honestly would argue that women are less selfish than men
Mhm.
for the reason that men are much more likely to abandon a family
Yeah.
for any reason.
Hmm.
As big as I have another family over here, or as little as I don't feel secure in this dynamic.
Hmm.
And so they will leave to try to rebuild their security.
Yeah.
A woman, there are a lot more, and I'm overgeneralizing a bit here because there's obviously different reasons for this, but there are a lot more single moms than there are single dads.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are because men will leave the house more likely. And not even just with that. And I don't want to say men aren't selfless, but to raise children is in and of itself a selfless act,
Yeah.
because the entire idea of that is, okay, well, I need to work and raise these children. And I'm giving myself to these children,
Hmm.
in my service. Okay. So the next one, there's two more prompts,
Okay.
and we'll get through them. A man can just be friends with an attractive woman. A man can just be friends with an attractive woman. Do you believe a man can be just friends with an attractive woman?
This is so hard, Kevin. Now I'm like through like 4 of these. I'm like, oh gosh, this is a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
There's a lot to think about.
yeah, it is. It is a lot to think about. Yeah, well, and here's the thing. There's no really true reason, I think, that if you are in a marriage to have friends of the opposite sex, unless there's something that's not being fulfilled. I think that women will always wind up having a beta friend.
Yeah.
Because in the back of their mind, they're always worried that they're not going to have that sense of security. or like as some sort of beta male, right, to keep around just because they feel like they don't have that sense of security. Now, the reason why a man might have an attractive female friend, I don't think I can answer that because I'm not a man. I think you'd be better. I don't know.
I think the key word in this one, and I'll bring it up on screen so then some people can start seeing it here, but a man can just be friends with an attractive woman. I think that's where it goes wrong. I think if it were to just say a man can just be friends with a woman, I think that can be true. I have one of my best friends in the world, is a woman, and she is, and I would consider you even a friend, Kat. But I'm talking about, I have another friend, Bianca, and she's been dating her boyfriend since high school, and they've been together for 5+ years, almost 6, I think. They're planning on getting married. Both of them are very good friends of mine, and I think that's kind of where the key is. But it's also, the other thing is the word is attractive. So the first is that I'm friends with her boyfriend.
Yeah.
I don't think you can have a male-female friendship unless
the male doesn't find her attractive. Now,
that's
obviously,
the
her
other
being
thing.
in a relationship is unattractive to you.
That
right?
in
So,
and of
like,
itself
let's
is
take-
unattractive. I'm also not physically attracted. Do I think she can look pretty at times? Sure, because I you can separate physical attractiveness from thinking
Yeah.
that somebody looks nice or is well dressed or anything like that.
Mhm.
But
You
I
have
think
to separate.
yes, because if you are actually attracted to somebody and you have a friendship, I believe that the best relationships, the best partnerships, the best lifelong togetherness ships, wife marriages, whatever, you want partnerships, whatever,
And
stem
honestly,
from a strong friendship.
like,
You know?
let's take a step back here. Why in the world, unless you're wanting to sleep with her, like make her your wife, right? Why would you want to be friends with a woman?
Yeah, I know. You want to know why? You want to know why? For the perspective.
Oh,
I'll
okay.
tell you. I'll tell you. I mean, like, as somebody who has gone through dating, I've had 2 serious relationships in my life, and Bianca, my best female friend, has seen me go through each of them. There was a time when I was when I was coming to the idea of ending my first relationship, where I was like, here's these problems I'm having. I just don't know what to do about it. And she, with that emotional standpoint that you talked about, that I don't even, she was able to tell me that I wasn't happy. And then I really reflected on it. And I'm like, she's right. I'm not happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like,
'cause
that
we have
was
that
the
superpower.
exactly. That was the culmination of all the events, the logical events that I was putting. And I was like, this happened, then this happened. And I don't know like why. And then she's like, it's because you're not happy.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're right.
You're right.
I'm not happy.
I don't know. Yeah,
Like,
see,
and so
men, they don't even know
that
how
is
to
why.
emote themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that is why, like, I totally believe that there is a value to having a friendship with a woman. However, again, there needs to be, I think there's a lot of,
Well, why?
there's
Well,
a-
let me ask you this: why wouldn't? Okay, why? Now, if you're in a relationship, right?
Yes.
That's is what the premise is. If you're in a relationship, why would you need a friend, a woman friend? If you have a woman at home, why don't you go to her for some sort of emote? I think that there is a, why don't you go to her?
why did I not go to my girlfriend at the time and talk to her about it?
See, yeah, but
Because it's a lot harder of a conversation. I mean, when you feel like you're having issues in a relationship, there's times where you might want a third party. And I'm only going to do somebody I'm trust. I wouldn't have gone to talk to Bianca if I didn't trust that because she also knew my girlfriend. And so the
she's
thing,
familiar with the
she was
situation,
familiar with the situation. It was an outside perspective. And I also want to be clear. I didn't base the entirety of my decisions based on my conversation with Bianca. I think that would also be screwed up.
Yeah.
I then took some of the things that I learned and
got the perspective,
and then I went and talked to my girlfriend at the time, and we had a conversation about it. It wasn't like I was like, oh, well, Bianca said I'm not happy, so I'm going to break up with my girlfriend. It was okay. I think she identified the problem. I'm going to go talk about this problem to my girlfriend. That's what ended up happening. And I always made it a conversation. It ultimately becomes a conversation with my girlfriend, but that's what I think it is. It can be perspective, and it doesn't necessarily just have to be a relationship perspective. It's giving, I think that there's a sense of that emotional. And yes, I think that later in life, to an extent, at some point, your wife can be that primary person that you go to for all of those emotional things. But I think that there are conversations that that you might need a third party, somebody who's not as involved in the situation.
Yeah, and I think about it now, and a beta best friend, from a female perspective, having a male friend. Why do I have a male friend?
Mm-hmm.
It's because he offers the male perspective, but it doesn't come off as harsh. So men tend to have a harsher perspective on things just because they see it from a logical standpoint.
Yeah.
Now betas, right? Or more feminine quality type men, more sensitive men. I should say.
Metrosexuals or
yeah, more sensitive men. They offer the male perspective, but they do it in a way that is more emotional, and it comes off, or even like dominant women. So I have a very dominant woman best friend, and she gives me the best advice because she knows how to package it all up in a nice, oh, it's okay, kind of emotional bow. But like, she gives me the hard, like, no, this is why.
Well, and like my best friend Josh, you guys all know him, and he'd even be the first one to tell you he is more of like a very emotional man. Like
I love Josh,
and so he's another one that I'll go to sometimes. But I mean, just the way that life has gone. I have some friends that are women, and they're just friends, and like I said, I consider you a friend. We've had some of those conversations about things that have gone on in my life. And you offer an interesting perspective. And I think that's really what it is again, the key in this one. And I'm curious to see what these men say. And if it talks about anything that we have said, but it's the key, I think, is attractive.
Yeah.
I think that's, they italicize the word can. And I think that's also important because it doesn't say have to or need. It's can, but I think attractive is the keyword, because if you are attracted to that woman, then it becomes too dicey, because then the conversation will not be from a standpoint of, hey, I want your perspective. There will be that underlying of, hey, I might be interested in you as an emotional or sexual partner, And so let's get into this and see what they have to say.
Can just be friends with an attractive woman.
Can?
Cat.
No technicalities, bro.
So I think it's all about, again, as we've been saying before, it's all about choices. I think if you find a woman attractive, it depends on, are you going to choose to pursue her or not? But for some of us, like if we're speaking from personal experience, I've met many attractive women. And that's not the only thing that, I'm looking for. It's also about personality. So she can be a 10, but if it's like the personality is just, someone who doesn't challenge me on a spiritual level, emotional level, someone who also is like emotionally unavailable, like, then it doesn't really matter.
I have friends who
I want to agree with that for a second. There's one thing I want to say with that. I want to agree with part of it. The thing is, so one, I think that's the difference, because that guy was a beta, I believe. I believe he was one of the betas that said that.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah.
Let me go back just to double check.
Yeah, I think he is a beta. He just doesn't look.
No, he doesn't look as much like a beta. But if I take myself out of the screen, Anthony, who is a beta. What I would say about it, though, that I think is interesting is, first off, so he mentions the attractive thing. I think that's a big difference that I would notice probably between betas and alphas, is that what he said if you choose to go after somebody. Well, the thing is that for an alpha who is single, if he sees someone that he thinks is attractive and is interested in, it will not be a choice. He's going to do it.
Yeah.
It's not going to be like, oh, maybe I will, maybe I won't. It'll be like, nope, I think she's attractive. I'm going to go get what I want.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
As a beta would make it a choice. It'll be, oh, well, am I going? But I also would agree with him, though, on the idea of the emotional thing. There's people that I've found that are physically incredibly attractive, but their personality is crap. But him bringing that up is kind of a stupid thing to bring up in this one, because it's asking about friendship. And friendship, the personality is everything.
Yeah.
Like, so that's the way. Let's see what our interesting Angelo has to say, though, as he's brought in here.
It comes to a point where like I see them as like sisters or just such close friends that even like the thought of them naked like grosses me out, because like I just don't see them that way. I see them as like
what?
Very close, like
where did that come from,
in some cases and things of that sort. And sometimes like you grow up with certain women and like you see them as like a sister, or you see them as a close friend, and you just grow up and you don't see her like that.
Fundamentally, what's natural and what is possible, I think, are two different things. Is it natural to not be attracted to a very attractive woman to you? I don't think so. But with a lot of intention, with it and your priorities are elsewhere and you're very intentional with how you're showing up in that space, I think you can do it. And I think that was the question, if it can be done, not if it's natural or not.
Recordings.
So very interesting. Obviously, there's another ad, but I'm going to let this ad play out. We'll discuss a little bit about what they said, and then we'll get into the last prompt. So have your feelings changed on the idea of can a man and a woman be friends, Kat? Attractive woman. Can a man be friends with an attractive woman?
I'm gonna go with no. I don't think men can be friends with somebody that they find attractive, because the whole idea of friendship, like you said, is this emotional part. Confiding in a friend, right? That's what a friend does. It's somebody who you can confide in, and somebody who shares a personal emotional relationship with you. So if there's two elements there, if you feel physically attracted and this person is also fulfilling you in an emotional way, then it just makes sense. Why would you not want to be with that person?
Well, that's exactly
in a physical way, and even in a relationship way, right? What's stopping you from being with that woman?
Yeah.
And in comparison to this other woman,
I think a big thing that was like not, and maybe they talked about it a little bit more in there, and you can go watch the video. I think faith is part of it, but I think the other thing too is that it never mentions in there either, though, the idea of being with, like, if you are in a monogamous relationship, but you have a friend that is. I'm curious to know your thoughts on that idea in and of itself. Just like if you're in a relationship, you would consider me a friend, but like we mainly only hang out at work or in everything. But like, would it be okay if you and I hung out outside of work where it's just you and I, we went and grabbed a meal or something like that? Is that okay considering the fact that you have a boyfriend?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't do it. Me personally, I just wouldn't do it. And I feel like because or actually, I don't think you're in a relationship right now.
No, I'm not. I'm currently single. I am currently single. I've talked
ladies,
about
it. Ladies. Kev Phares, speechless. Follow him on YouTube. No, I'm just kidding. But no, yeah, I don't feel that like even level of attraction to you. Now, I would definitely avoid it.
To be clear, also because you're my boss, I was not asking you out on a date. I was just putting the hypothetical conundrum out there.
Yeah, no. Well, one, I wouldn't do it because I'm your direct superior. So maybe that's why it's so quick for me to say no, is because I work with you.
Yeah.
But also, now if it was a work related dinner, that'd be a totally different story. But I would really be interested if it was like somebody I was like attracted to on a physical level, because that would be the prompt for me.
That would be the prompt there. Yeah. I just kind of assumed because I'm a dashing young fellow, but
I just kind of assume. No. Well, and you've been in and out of relationships, objectively good looking guy, right?
Just not appreciate it.
Just not mine, right?
Yep.
Just not my level of attraction. And it'd be interesting. I would like run. I'd be like, no, absolutely not. If it was like an attractive dude, I'd be like, I'd avoid you probably at all costs. I don't know. I think that they're for men, like if there is attraction and an emotional piece to it and you guys are friends, like that doesn't make any sense at all. Now, if it's somebody you find like unattractive or like not
or just
not
like
attracted to
neutral, like a neutral, or like, because I don't even see, like there's some like I just said, when we were in that boardroom over there and had our meeting, I did not think about gender at all. Went right over my head, because it's like, this might sound mean. I don't mean it this way, but like I don't even necessarily see you as, like, when I look at you, I'm just like, I'm not like, oh, that's a woman. Like that's not the first thing I think about you. Like, and so
and the reason is because I have dominant qualities in the workplace.
There's that, but it's also just like we've known each other for a long time. Like I do see you as like kind of a friend, and like
you see me as a bro. It's all right.
Kind of, yeah. Well, and even like you said, so I grew up. So a lot of my experiences come up from the fact that my mom was my primary caregiver and primary person that raised me, along with my two sisters. I did not have a single brother, and my dad worked in the city of Chicago a lot. He would be gone before I woke up and back after I went to bed when I was little, and so my primary influences are female. And so to an extent, when it comes to wanting advice or friendship, even, I'm very drawn to women, even in both obviously for relationships, but also for just having somebody to bounce ideas off of and talk to, because that's how I was raised. That's like how my entire life has been talking to women. I feel like a lot of times, like men, I have certain, I mean, heck, my best friend that's a dude is one of the most emotional people. I make fun of him for it because I'm not that emotional. And so he's one of the most emotional people I know. And
I
so
think that people who have best friends, take a look at your best friend. Okay, take a look at their qualities. They're your best friend. Why are they your best friend? It's because they are both.
Yeah.
They're both the female and they are both the male. That you like, it's a blend. It's
Yeah.
almost like they are the perfect person to have that friendship with, because they can provide for me the male perspective, but also be that emotional person. So I think that opposite sex relationships are important, but if you find that person attractive, that's where it starts to get dicey.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're coming into this the last one here, and so we'll talk about it real quick, and then we'll go into a little bit of the debate and react to the debate. But so the last one is, a man should not cry in front of his kids, and we kind of touched on this one a little bit, but a man should not cry in front of his kids. Yes or no?
Oh wow. Um Gosh, I don't know. A man should not cry in front of his kids. Okay, I'll say it. Men, if they cry in front of their kids, they're going to feel almost obligated. So I'm me being through this recently. My dad has never cried in his life, um, and just recently I saw him cry because he got sick with COVID and things like that, and he's really been kind of when he thought that he wasn't going to make it. Right, that's when he started to cry, when he thought that he wasn't going to make it, and that's that throws children, even at my age, 24 years old,
Yeah.
into an emotional response that is just seeing my dad. Now I see my mom cry literally every day. At that point, I just dismiss it. But she's a very emotional person, right? And my dad was not. And men emote very differently. And when they cry, that means things are really messed up and you're scared. And I think it creates almost a fear in children, even at my age, right? And this was a very like serious thing. And I didn't blame my dad for crying, right?
Yeah.
I would never blame my dad for crying. But what happens, you have to be very selective about that. If it is
That's
a
where I was going to go,
situation,
is like a very extreme, again, like I said earlier, just in terms of men crying, even in front of a spouse, because I think it's somewhat comparable in terms of like, you want to command respect from your kids. You also want to command, as a man, you want to command respect from your kids and your spouse.
and you don't want to scare your kids.
That as well. That as well when it comes, yeah. And so
I think that
those very extreme
crying is scary.
situations,
Because it's unnatural, right?
If you have a very close family member or something that dies, like, understandable. If you have if something, I don't know, serious happens, if you get diagnosed with a serious disease, totally understand.
Yeah.
Heck, if you're like, I mean, this is one that I think is one of the unimaginables. But it's something to talk about it because it is one of the extremes. But like, if your child is diagnosed with like leukemia or cancer,
Yeah.
I don't think you should let your kids see you cry,
because you're going to.
but I understand you crying at some point.
Yeah, because men, they don't cry just because. I cry, I don't know, at like a kitten crossing the street. It's insanity. I don't know.
I think men are typically people, because I've learned this with some of my more recent relationships. Women are much more likely to cry at something that makes them happy
or angry. Every emotion,
or angry.
Cry.
Exactly.
Every emotion.
Exactly.
Every single one.
As
Happy,
as
cry.
men, like
Sad,
for
cry.
me to cry, there's been one time in my life where I've cried from happiness. And it was when I found out that I had gotten the Turning Point scholarship to send me to Mar-a-Lago and everything, because it was like I had worked for so many years. And so like, and it wasn't like I was bawling or anything, but like I was like, I had a few tears that was like of serious excitement, and just also from reflecting on everything that I had done, the physical toll that some of it has taken on my body, the mental and emotional toll of consistently being told I'm a racist, sexist, homophobe, everything like that. That was the only time in my life I've ever cried from happiness. Every other time it's been from profound sadness, somebody dying. There's been times when I was a little kid, obviously I would cry like anything because you're a little kid. But like in more of my adult life, it's been like when my uncle died.
Yeah.
Or when my grandma died. Or when I've had a few friends kill themselves.
Yeah.
Like those kinds of things.
Yeah, yeah. And women crying, it doesn't have so much weight, but when men cry, it's it's a big thing. It's a big deal. Just because they emote so differently than women do. And it's a beautiful thing. I think that it's great.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, men crying in front of their children, generally just over randomness, or generally just over, basic emotions. You get a ticket one day, and like you're having a bad day. You're not allowed to cry, dude. Suck it up, because you're gonna scare that kid every single day of their waking life.
Exactly. Absolutely. You should be able to show them that you can handle the hard situations that are not necessarily the extreme, but hard situations in life. Let's see a little bit of what the debate has to say.
Point of being a whiny little baby, he held it down on my family. My parents are the happiest couple I've ever seen, still to this day. But my dad was able to, and still is able to, at funerals, be able to show emotion. During movies, when he feels the emotion, be able to show up and do that. I'd never see him whining about, like what you guys are saying, whining about just issues happening in his life, like at work and what he's doing. Never. He deals with that on his own, but he is showing up vulnerably when he is experiencing an emotion, not from a whiny baby place, but from a freeness that he has with it. And I even think, like when I first went out to college, he's tearing up too.
So I would just like to say,
I can understand that. I can understand
big,
that.
Yeah, big profound moments.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is a field I specialize in. I'm a program manager for a nonprofit that focuses on mental health. And a lot of the times what we get in our clients are men that are coming in dealing with childhood trauma, these expectations and standards of trying to live up to the quote unquote masculine ideal. So a lot of the times we have men coming in because they're still trying to seek approval in their 30s, or they're still trying to get that male validation, in their 40s. And it goes back to making sure we understand the difference between regulating your emotions and suppressing them. I think that's why I said earlier, like, to be an alpha, you have to be balanced. You guys can be emotional as well. You guys can be vulnerable. It doesn't make you less than. Just like a woman being more assertive doesn't make her less than a woman. If you feel like you don't want to promote being emotional in front of your kids, I've asked the question, does that kind of fall into toxic masculinity for your son?
Well, first, I didn't say anything about not being vulnerable. Vulnerable is the word that I brought up. So I think being vulnerable is very important. I think physically crying in front of your kids is not ideal. This is not about an ego stroke or trying to be overly masculine. I think being vulnerable as a man is one of the strongest things a man can actually do. It's just that I don't think that crying, particularly sobbing, is going to be very healthy as the leader and the person that they're supposed to come to for that safety and that care.
But isn't real vulnerability then you're just not being honest? Be like, yo, babe, sorry, I had this thing. I left and I cried, but now I'm here to be strong with you. That's real vulnerability.
I can't think of a scenario where I'd leave to cry.
Yeah.
See, I guess.
But needing feels performative. I'm trying to show you how vulnerable I am.
No, it's not necessarily showing. It's
I think you can be very vulnerable without crying.
Yeah. People just express their sadness in different ways.
You can be, but I heard what you guys were saying earlier, and I agree with that. It's like, you don't want to be a crybaby about things. We don't, right? But it's like to be for instance, if I'm at a funeral and this person meant something to tell me, no, can't do that. Or I see something on television or a movie that moves me, like, you can't do that. It's like kind of like a very weird thing. And I think you guys touched upon that.
There's just like a weird stigma behind like crying, because
I think there is a stigma behind crying, but I don't think it's I don't think it's
there's also
unnatural.
There's also a stigma against like stripping naked and running down the street.
This
right?
is true.
So
Exactly. Like
stigmas are not necessarily negative. Sometimes stigmas are there because they're healthy.
And once again, and there's obviously a reaction when you see somebody cry for a reason that you do not believe to be a reason to cry. There's just like an automatic, almost natural reaction to that of like, okay, I don't really respect that person.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's TikToks that I've seen go around of like, there was one that cried because she had to go to work. Like she like literally filmed herself crying. And I was like, I don't respect that person.
Oh my God.
That was a woman too. And like, I was just like, yeah, I don't respect that woman. Like,
I don't respect that woman having to go.
Crying because you have to go to work. Like, get over yourself.
Okay, well,
and get used to
I've done it before. I wouldn't go to the extent of trying to film it.
But exactly, it's honestly because she filmed it and made it so public. Look, like, I think that they touched on a great point there. Like, okay, you can have a very emotive man, but you don't need to be publicly emotive.
Yeah.
Right. And so like you could be somebody who is who's very, very who feels the need to cry often, but you could go somewhere else to do it. Nobody needs to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like,
yeah.
And I think that's, if you want to maintain a certain level of respect with certain people, I can understand that. But again, I do think it is important for extremes to show emotion, because you don't want to teach your kids that it's never okay to show emotion, because then it'll all just be consistently bottled up. And so there is a level of vulnerability that you want to teach, but you want to push it to where it's a healthy level of vulnerability and isn't going to make them weak and weak people.
Yeah, my mom would just like make us cry it out.
All the time?
All the time. She'd make us cry it out. She'd be like, all right, go ahead, cry. And then this is what my mom used to do. She used to take the old camera that clicked when you swiped it. It was like,
that's what you get put on the fridge. It's not going to be a good grade or anything. It's the picture of you bawling your eyes out.
You ready? Right? She goes, you want me to take a picture? No, she'd let us cry it out. And and we would learn to, hey, it's about controlling your emotions. You have to control your emotions just as a person, right? I can't come in here into work and cry every day.
Absolutely. Well, everybody, I hope you liked this special edition episode of Speechless. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And if you want to subscribe to Conservative Cat Peterson, go for doing that on YouTube and everything. I'm going to make this into a 2-part video, so I hope you enjoyed watching part 2. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment what you think about anything that we talked about from that Jubilee video. If you want to go check out Jubilee's Middle Ground series, go check it out in the description of this video. Thank you again for tuning in, everybody. This has been Speechless, The Daily Show.